The Trumpet Daily from Jerusalem.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Trumpet Daily. Well, it's been 2 months since the terrorist attack in Benghazi and still many questions remain unanswered. Of course, the big news this weekend has been the sudden and shocking resignation of CIA Director David Petraeus because of marital infidelity. According to a report at Newsmax, FBI agents are furious that the decision to push Petraeus out was delayed until after the U.S. presidential election. Now, many others are also wondering why the resignation happened just 1 week before Petraeus was scheduled to testify before Congress about the Benghazi cover-up. On Friday, the same day that Petraeus stepped down, the Pentagon finally released its version of the timeline that shows how the U.S. military responded to the Benghazi attack, if you even call it a response. According to the Associated Press, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta and his top military advisor were notified of the attack about 50 minutes after it began and were about to head into a previously scheduled meeting with President Barack Obama. The meeting quickly turned into a discussion of potential responses to the unfolding situation in Benghazi, where militants had surrounded the consulate and set it on fire. There have been persistent questions about whether the Pentagon should have moved more rapidly to get troops into Libya or had units closer to the area as the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on America approached. In particular, there was at least a 19-hour gap between the time when Panetta first ordered military units to prepare to deploy and the time a Marine anti-terrorism team landed in Tripoli. So it took hours, 19 hours, to generate some kind of meaningful response, and this was after the ambassador had repeatedly warned for months about terrorist threats to the Benghazi mission. Even on the day it happened, about 3 hours before the attack, the consulate told the State Department that radical Islamists were gathering weapons and gathering steam. They told them that the Libyan security team was photographing the facility. And all of this happened on the anniversary of 9/11 in a city that had become a hotbed of terrorist activity after the removal of Colonel Gaddafi last year. Benghazi is basically run by terrorists, and the Americans stationed there had been requesting additional security for months. But those requests fell upon deaf ears. In Washington, the AP wrote, Panetta said that based on a continuous evaluation of threats, military forces were spread around Europe and the Middle East to deal with a variety of missions. In the months before the attack, he noted, several hundred reports were received indicating possible threats to U.S. facilities around the world, and noted that there was no advance notice of imminent threats to U.S. personnel or facilities in Benghazi. That's according to Panetta and the Pentagon. Now, the State Department knew that there had been imminent threats, but evidently no one over there communicated this concern to the Pentagon. And then, of course, there's the CIA, whose officers in Benghazi could have helped Ambassador Stevens, but they were told to stand down. David Petraeus said a few weeks ago that he wasn't the one who gave that order, implying that it was someone higher up. Petraeus is now gone, and as you know, the higher-ups at the White House have tried to blame everything on a YouTube clip. Just 2 weeks ago, Senator John McCain said the president is either engaged in a massive cover-up, deceiving the American people, or he is so grossly incompetent that he is not qualified to be the commander-in-chief of our armed forces. Now, can you remember a time when America has looked this inept and weak around the world? What must the nations here in the Middle East, so many of them are hostile to U.S. interests, but what must these nations think about the waning power and influence of the United States? Leviticus 26 and verse 19 says that God has broken the pride of America's power. Now, it's hard to imagine anything that could illustrate this better than America's feckless response to the Benghazi fiasco and the attempted cover-up after the fact. Now, I want to remind you of what we said way back at the start of the war against terrorism. This is from the Trumpet Magazine in November 2001. We wrote, while the U.S. wants to eliminate terrorism and is becoming much more aggressive in trying to do so, its efforts will fall short. It frankly does not have the necessary will to tackle the enormity of the problem. Now, we told you that the war against terrorism was doomed to failure from the very beginning, not because the U.S. lacked the power to win, but because it lacked the will to win. And now, look at where we are today, here in 2012. Do you think so great a fall could not come to so great powers as Britain and America? That's what Herbert W. Armstrong asked in the United States and Britain in Prophecy well over a half-century ago. He said, you need to open your eyes to the fact that Britain's sun already has set, and the United States is fast riding to the greatest fall that ever befell any nation. The handwriting is definitely on the wall, Mr. Armstrong warned. Now, Mark Steyn recently picked up on this handwriting theme himself. In his book, After America, he compared America today to Belshazzar's Babylon, saying we're not facing decline, we're already in it. Just last Friday, Steyn said, it is highly doubtful that the United States political system has the capacity for meaningful course correction. Now, in looking at the political system's bungled response to Benghazi, is there really any reason to doubt his forecast? There is now nothing in the way of Iran dominating the Middle East. They have no fear of the United States, which means radical Islam will spread and spread fast. So we can expect the pace of prophetic events in this region to accelerate significantly in the months ahead. Now, to understand the meaning behind these many prophetic events as they unfold, make sure you bookmark thetrumpet.com on your web browser and check in daily. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time on the Trumpet Daily.